Donald, you criticize Vice President Kamala Harris a lot for costs that have risen while she's been in office. You exclude the context of the pandemic, but given that fact, and given that you're years now into a presidential run, what specifically will you do as president to lower costs? This is a question that Donald Trump was asked in an interview that I'll play for you. And given that Trump, that's my wording of the question, but that general idea is asked. Given that Trump has spent so much of his campaign talking about inflation and the affordability issues in people's lives, you'd think he'd have some thoughtful, coherent answer, but not so much. And as it becomes more and more of a discussion of conversation that Trump's brain seems to be also experiencing the impact of aging, potentially, decline going on, these answers are more and more notable. How rambly, incoherent, and disconnected. And when you watch it first, and then afterwards we'll review more from this pretty wild interview, I want you to just take it in normally. Then I'll read you the transcript to make the point we've been making, which is we translate Trump English. We shouldn't. Let's judge him like a normal English speaker and do so as critical as we would with someone else.
What are the specific mechanics of how prices come down? You know, the steps that would be taken in a second term for you?
So, first of all, she can't do an interview. She could never do this interview because you ask questions like, give me a specific answer. She talks about her lawn when she was growing up. This woman is not equipped to be president. She's not equipped to deal with President Xi, who I took in hundreds of billions of dollars with him, and Putin. We had no war with Putin. Remember, and I'm just going to go off just for this, with Bush, they took a lot, Russia. With Biden, they're trying to take everything. With Obama, they took a lot. With Trump, Russia took nothing. Just remember that. You know, it's a little chart. But what happened, and when you look at what took place, was so sad. When they took over, they cut the oil way down, and oil started going through the roof. It was going to go to $10 a gallon. It was going to go to numbers that nobody's ever seen. And so they went back to the Trump drilling. They said, let it go back. That was the only good thing, but they stopped. Because I would be there, but 4 years later, I would be triple what the number was. Right now, they're just about even where I was. But they only did that because of the fact that they eventually have an election coming up. And you remember at the beginning what happened. That's one of the reasons that Putin went in, because it went to $100 a barrel instead of $40 a barrel. And he could fight all the wars he wants with those kind of numbers because he's a big seller of oil and gas. So what happens is they went back to what I was doing, just said, just reopen. It wasn't hard. It's so crazy what they want to do. They're going to destroy lives. They're going to destroy what they have done to this country, and especially in the sense of allowing millions and millions of people come in, because that's something, you know, we can fix the gasoline situation and we can fix the anything.
Do prices come down magically because it's not them?
They come down with energy and they come down with interest rates. We're going to get
What? You don't have control over interest rates. But she had to cut him off there because he was just going on and on. And I know you, as a probably more consistent than your average American political viewer and listener, you have translated what he just said maybe in your head. But again, we don't need to do that for him, especially in front of the backdrop of constant MAGA criticisms of Vice President Harris being, quote unquote, too vague, meandering in her answers too much, according to them. And that's the answer you get to how are you going to address affordability problems? We'll be right back to the video. Just really quickly, if you're not already, I would appreciate you clicking that subscribe button. We are really close to 1 million subscribers. You can help us get there. Easy, free way. And then we do have merch at lukebeasleymerch.com with Harris as a promo code. You can get free shipping. Super cool election-themed merch. Check it out. Back to the video. Here we go. Here's a normal delivery of very non-normal words. I think she said, what are the mechanics of how you'll lower costs? First of all, she could never do this interview because you ask questions like, give me a specific answer. She talks about her lawn when she was growing up. This woman's not equipped to be president, and she's not equipped to deal with President Xi, who I took in hundreds of billions of dollars with him, and Putin. We had no war with Putin. Whoops, it just skipped down. Sorry. We had no war with Putin. And remember, I'm just going to go off of this. With Bush, they took a lot. And Russia, with Biden, they're trying to take everything. With Obama, they took a lot. And with Trump, Russia took nothing. Just remember that. It is a little chart. But what happened, and when you look at what took place, was so sad. When they took over, they cut the oil way down, and also they started going through the roof. It was going to go to $10 per gallon. It was going to go to numbers no one has ever seen. And so they went back to the Trump drilling. Who's they? Who? We know who they is, but he hasn't introduced this character to his story. They said, let it go back, and that was only good thing, but they stopped because I would be there. But 4 years later, I would be triple what the number was. Right now, they're just about even where I was. But they only did that because of the fact that they eventually have an election coming up. And you remember at the beginning what happened. That is one of the reasons that Putin went in, because it was to $100 per barrel instead of $40 per barrel. And he could fight all the wars he wants with those kind of numbers because he is a big seller of oil and gas. So what happens is they went back to what I was doing and just said, reopen. It was not hard. It is so crazy what they want to do. They're going to destroy the lives, and they're going to destroy what they have done to this country, and especially in the sense of allowing millions and millions of people to come in, because that is something, we can fix the gasoline situation, and we can fix and then she cuts him off. That's not how you speak. Okay, that's just not how an adult, especially politician, is supposed to articulate a thought. Here's the translated version of whatever you would describe that thought as. Oh, thanks for asking. Wait, let me get her name first. Cheryl. The way that we lower costs is we roll back, and then I'll fact check these claims, by the way. But thank you, Cheryl. The way that we lower costs is we roll back the attack on American energy by the Biden-Harris administration. This brings to my mind the way that their war on energy actually incentivized, through economic implications of those policies, Russia to invade Ukraine, because Russia believed they'd have the funds to do so based on how they were benefiting from the economic landscape the Biden-Harris attack on energy facilitated. And so what I'll do is unleash the power of American energy. This will allow for the transportation of goods and services, the production of goods and services to be cheaper, thus lowering costs for consumers, all the while making gasoline cheaper at the pump. And just to add on, I know that's not what you asked about, but the fact that people, I just want to go back to this, the fact that people are coming from jails and insane asylums, and then he can get into that whole thing. That's what he was trying to articulate. He never said Ukraine. That whole time, he never said Ukraine, but he was mentioning the invasion of Ukraine over and over and over again. He never reintroduced Biden or Harris. He just said, they did this, they did that, where it sounded like, if you were to follow this in a normal English way, Russia was the they who cut off energy production in the United States. But most importantly, he's lying about that too. Because the drop in energy production that he's referring to started under him because of the pandemic, because of the complete collapse in demand. Then oil production specifically was restricted to try to balance out the industry, or to stabilize the industry, I should say. And then, as we worked to solve these supply chain problems and get back to normal, energy production got back to normal levels, and now record-breaking levels. Before playing more clips from this interview, I just should we do this again? I've been fascinated by exploring the text version of Trump's thoughts, because I really do think when you hear his voice, you control for whatever crazy stuff you're going to hear. You assume it's not going to be that articulate. And I don't think we should be doing that, especially now as they levy attacks against Harris. Let's compare how thoughtful and coherent the two of them are, And for Trump, that's not going to put him out on top. An MSNBC piece that we talked about titled "Questions Surrounding Trump's Mental Acuity: Our Real 2024 Story" included this transcript. She destroyed the city of San Francisco. And I own a big building there. No, I shouldn't talk about this, but that's okay. I don't give a damn because this is what I'm doing. I should say it's the finest city in the world. Sell and get the hell out of there, right? But I can't do that. I don't care. I lost billions of dollars. Someone said, what do you think you lost? I said, probably 2-3 billion. That's okay. I don't care. They say, you think you'd do it again? And that's the least of it. They always say, I don't know if you know, Lincoln was horribly treated. Jefferson was pretty horribly. Andrew Jackson, they say, was the worst of all that. He was treated worse than any other president. I said, do that study again because I think there's nobody close to Trump. I even got shot, and who the hell knows where that came from, right? Not to mention, what would you do on childcare costs, Donald? Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. I was somebody, we had Senator Marco Rubio, my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on the issue. It's a very important issue, but I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that because look, childcare is childcare. Couldn't you know there's something you have to have it in this country, you have to have it, but when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly, and it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that is going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all the other things that are going on in our country, because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people, but we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about make America great again. We have to do it because right now we're a failing nation, so we'll take care of it. Thank you. Very good question. Thank you. No. Those are English words. That's not an English thought. That's not speech in the way we're supposed to use it. I reject. Point is, this is important both because of their attacks against, sometimes granted, sort of vague, platitude-filled statements from Harris. There was one from the Oprah event that went viral. A lot of people talked about where it was sort of just a lot of terms, the identity, we know who we are based on who we are, and that's what strengthens who we are. That type of circular, but that's your typical political stalling as you think of the next thing you're going to say. And they say that's a sign that she can't articulate a specific policy, even though filled throughout the rest of the event is her doing just that. But then Trump here, so detached from anything resembling coherent speech, and they have no problem with it. That's number one. Number two is Harris compared to Trump. There's a big age gap, and they were very concerned with Biden's age for perfectly acceptable reasons. Now they're not concerned with Trump, who is practically Biden's age, and his signs of the impact of that aging. This is going to be a long segment, but let's just charge through it and look at some of these other clips, including this one.
That kind of rhetoric in any way for inspiring assassination attempts, or do you think it's completely unrelated?
Well, I do, and a lot of people say that, but more importantly, it's really just the opposite. They are a danger. They're destroying our country. They're allowing millions and millions of people to come into our country that shouldn't be here, people from jails and people from gangs.
I meant to fact check this too. That's not accurate.
They're all over there, like Caracas in Venezuela. Their crime is down 72%. You look at what's happening all over the world. And I'm not just talking about South America. I'm talking about prisons are being emptied all over the world. They're dumping them into the United States. Criminals are being taken off the street in cities and places all over the world. They're being dumped into the United States.
Big, massive dumps, as he once said.
Institutions are being emptied out into the United States. They are a threat to democracy. What they're doing to our country, they're poisoning our country. They're poisoning it. And you can take a look in Ohio, what's happening.
So he's already been told that the poisoning the blood of our country language very much resembles, we'll just say, rhetoric of past horrific dictators. He's been told that. He's been asked about that in interviews. But he keeps doing it. MAGA gets very upset, especially in the wake of the terrible attempts to kill Trump. MAGA has said, oh, that's the fault of people making comparisons to, for example, Hitler. But why, with that or being described as a threat to democracy, why choose to use rhetoric that does just so happen to perfectly align with dictators of the past? Is the question many people are asking. And when you don't have thoughtful policy proposals, as you've just seen demonstrated, or at least you can't articulate them, just pick a group, as history has shown us authoritarian leaders like to do, dehumanize them, fearmonger about them. You don't have to be attached to the facts of the situation, but you can just start saying that they're coming from jails and insane asylums. They're just being dumped. There are planes flying above us, and people are parachuting criminals into our cities. Try to scare people into voting for you instead of compelling them with meaningful policies. Then this next clip, if I can get my computer functioning again, is a follow-up on that same topic.
Thing that's ever happened. But we're getting the criminals out, and we're going to do that fast, and we know who they are. The local police know their names, and they know their serial numbers. They know everything about
serial numbers?
About them. We work with the local police, the local law enforcement, which is great all throughout the country. But we have to get, look, we have people, we have murderers that have been let into our country. They're not going to get better. We have people that are insane, that their mental institutions are, the mental institutions all over the world have a much lower population. And
this is 10 minutes later from the first clip I showed you. 10 minutes later, he runs out of things to say and goes, they're coming from mental institutions. How about you think of one other way to articulate that thought? Oh, they're coming from jails and criminals by the millions, and that's why crime is spiking. I mean,
and we're also following breaking news this morning. Just moments ago, the FBI released a new report showing the national crime rate decreased in 2023. NBC's Ken Delanian is with us this morning. Ken, good morning. Break down what this report says.
Good morning, Jose. This report is entitled Crime in the Nation. It's the FBI's best estimate of what happened last year in terms of crime, and it shows a significant decrease. Violent crime decreased an estimated 3% last year, according to the FBI. Murder and manslaughter came down an estimated 11.6%. That's the biggest drop in the last 20 years.
Look at that. Look at it. MAGA, look at it. We're seeing drops in crime, the likes of which you rarely see historically. So why does Trump keep lying to you? Why does he make your life more miserable? By convincing you should be more scared than you actually need to be. You could be living a more pleasant life when he says, as you're going to see in a future clip, that you can't even go out onto a sidewalk without being mugged. You can't get a loaf of bread, which, by the way, he thinks you need an ID to get a loaf of bread. And you can't even get that without being attacked and stabbed and raped. He's making your life worse because you're walking around with that stress. That's a real visceral stress that you're carrying with you for unjustified reasons, because actually you're safer than you've been in a very long time. Because actually less rape is happening, less manslaughter, less murder. And year by year, we're just getting safer and safer. Maybe, given that, how about we let the people currently in power, that ideology, stay in power for a little longer? It's a thought.
Harris, but nobody knows who I'm talking about when I say Harris. They only know, it's a sort of interesting, it's her last name, but nobody knows who I'm talking about. Defund the police, all of these different things. It shows how bad they were. It shows how much they don't work. And I think it makes it much easier for me to do my job. People want us to do the job. They've got to stop crime. They've got to stop crime. You go out for a loaf of bread today and you end up getting mugged, killed, shot. If you look at Chicago.
And then he cites some stat from Chicago, which often is gun violence that comes of their gun policy. But you hear that? You can't even get if he's saying that about now, then he's saying that and then some about his administration, because it was worse. Historically, we're at an incredibly safe period of time right now. So go live like it. Enjoy your life. You're choosing, whether it be Newsmax or OAN or Fox News, to take a metaphorical cable and just plug your brain in to these networks. That then, while there's so much in this world to be stressed about, they somehow find new, fake, fabricated things to make you stressed about. To put wear and tear on your heart. Just so you'll go scared, and vote for Trump. Instead of living in reality, there are real issues. There's real pain. You may have real economic hardship. But Trump doesn't have a plan. He talks about energy production is the only thing he can pull out of his head as to how to lower costs, when clearly that can't be the sole solution because we're already doing it at record levels. So he can't explain to you how he'll actually address problems in your life, but he can invent new problems that don't exist, like record high crime that's not there, and make you scared about that.
And we also had to go because when I took over, the cupboards.
This is on the subject of his pandemic response.
Everything. And we also had to go because when I took over, the cupboards were bare. We had nothing. We were supposed to have, but we had nothing. And in all fairness to previous presidents, the reason is that nobody really thought a pandemic in this world, in this age, was possible. You remember 1917, we had the great pandemic that people talk about. 100 million people, they say, died. And basically, this would have happened here, too. And it didn't happen here. I think I did a great job. I think I will not be given credit for it. But there are a lot of people that think I did a really...
All right. We just have to address this again and again and again. He says he did a great job. Guardian reports the U.S. could have averted 40% of the deaths from COVID-19 based on this Lancet Commission analysis if Trump hadn't mishandled the pandemic. Number two, he says 1917. He can't correct himself. It's 1918 is what he's talking about. And number three, he says the cupboards were bare. No one thought a pandemic could hit. When he entered office, he shut down and dismantled the pandemic response initiative that the Obama administration had implemented. But somehow, we've allowed ourselves to look to Trump for an updated version of reality. Hey, you remember that whole thing? The reason that 81 million people fired him from office, as Kamala Harris said, the reason that he had such a low approval rating, the reason that so many people died during the pandemic who didn't have to based on the studies that we've covered, the reason the economy was in more of a dire situation than it had to be, the reason that crime spiked more than it had to. Hey, the reason, I should say, we were more divided than we'd been in a very long time, the reason our democracy was hanging in the balance as he left office. How about we sort of cut out that part? Throw that part away, and you can just remember the stuff before that. Is that good? Let's blame Biden-Harris for all the pandemic stuff they had to deal with, right? So prices go up because of pandemic conditions. Let's blame that all on them. But anything pandemic related under Trump, don't blame him. Don't even remember that part. Remember it. Please. Let me know what you thought. That was a doozy of a segment, I know. Sorry, it went kind of long. But you can tell me in the comments, and you can support the show, get the members-only bonus show by clicking the join button below or the link in the description of this video.